Network Dojo.
Our last service that we're going to talk about on the CMX world is going to be Connect and Engage. This is a service that gives us yet one more guest portal option for our users to potentially go through. This adds on to all the local WebAuth options, being local WebAuth, local pass-through, external WebAuth, and then we have the central WebAuth with the ICE portals on top of that. And now we have Connect and Engage portals. So the portals act similarly to our other portals that we're already used to, where a client usually connects up to an open SSID. They get redirected to a portal, they supply some information, they get through the portal. Now, what's unique about this one over what we can already do with the other portals? Well, the big one here is that it's enhanced by location intelligence. We can say, have multiple different portals installed and have, based off of where a client's located, be assigned to one portal over another. And so, think about a shopping mall. You could, if you had good enough location data, you could technically have a different portal for every store that a user actually enters in. And it could be branded with that store's information and all that kind of neat stuff. But obviously for us, we're going to be very simple with that respect. It allows us to integrate with social media logins like Facebook. And so rather than putting in your own username password, you can log in with Facebook. We have a portal builder that we can use to create our own customized portal, so we can tweak what information we're asking from with our users, images, text, so we can build this all up from scratch and do our own thing here. Now, definitely the focus with these portals, it's not about authentication, honestly. Yes, we could do a Facebook authentication, but the whole point is actually get data about the users. So we're trying to get their email addresses, we're trying to get their Facebook information, usually so that you use this information and then we can market to them. So that's usually why we would use the CMX portals, is so that we can, one, maybe use some of these advanced features, and two, it's about gathering that data about the end users that we can oftentimes use for marketing purposes. But these portals, we actually have a couple of different ways we can engage these portals depending on how we configure our WLANs. So there's actually two different variants of the WLANs that we'll be able to use, and we'll look at those in just a minute. But the portals will, the behavior of the portals are similar to what we've used to see. So the clients connect up, they try to go to a web page, we redirect them to the portal, they put their portal information in, they're done at the end of that. Portals are fully customizable, meant to gather information, not for authentication. So the only username password is social media logins, which for us probably is never going to be an option because these racks should not be connected out to the internet. And so without that, can't reach out to Facebook, can't reach out to whatever the other social media options that they have. So for us, it's all going to be local portals that don't require anything external. There's going to be no username password, but they are going to enter in some information to identify themselves. We can send users different portals based off of their location. We can send them to a specified URL at the completion of the portal process. We can also optionally have rate limiting applied to their session, and that's going to be dependent on the type of SSID that we use. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these configs, and then we'll get into the WLAN configuration to support all of this. All right, so we are going to live in the Connect and Engage tab up here. The dashboard is just informational. There's really nothing that we can do within here, so we don't really need to worry about that. But let's go over to this Connect experience, and this is going to kind of lay out how the policies and everything's going to work. So within our Connect experiences option here, we see basically our site and our zones. So of the maps that I imported, I had a site called CCIE land. Within that, I had a building called wireless. Within that, I had a floor called floor 1. And on floor 1, there are two coverage areas, which they call zones. And I labeled one west and I labeled one east. And so we'll see that we can actually do different things at different levels. So for instance, we can ignore Facebook Wi-Fi because, again, we should not have any integration with Facebook because we should not have internet access in the lab. So that one can be kind of ignored here. So the portal, what portal do we actually want to send them to. And we can get that granular all the way down to the zone. So if someone's in the west zone of floor 1, they could have portal 1. If someone's in the east zone, they can have portal 2. But for all these, we'll probably have a default portal that gets assigned to everything, and then we can override it on a per entity basis is usually how we would do that. The policy would be the rate limiting policy. And we'll look at that in a minute. And then the post auth URL is going to be where do we send them after they complete the portal. So that we can have a URL down to the per zone level. The policy, though, is actually only configurable, I believe it's to the site. So assuming that we only have one site, which is the more likely scenario, we'll only have one policy. But if we did have multiple sites, each site could have their own rate limiting policy. So again, different things have different levels of granularity that we can assign to. But at the end of the day, if I'm in the west zone, I'll see an entry through here, so I'll know which portal I would use, which policy I would be assigned, and which URL I would be redirected to at the completion of the portal. And so once we start configuring this out, you'll start seeing all this information starting to be filled in. And then we can trigger the configurations of the defaults through these links up top, or we can go to the individual areas to configure them. Policy plans, again, for rate limiting. Under the library, we have our portals. And then there's really no separate section for the URL, post auth URL. We just configure that directly underneath here. And then we also have some general settings. So let's get some portals, and we'll get this configured up, and then we'll kind of come through and we'll talk about the settings and how they affect the behavior within here. So I'll go ahead and click on this create default. So we'll start at the portal level. So I'm going to choose create default. And I'll call this one CCIE. I'll call this one CCIE. So we can use these pre-canned templates to sort of get us going and tweak what they already have. There is also custom, where we're going to just build it 100% from scratch. So for the first one, I'll use this registration form as my starting template. So let's go ahead and choose this. And then hit next. All right, so it's going to base it off of this. So it's already got a lot of things built out within here. So as I edit this, we'll see how these things, we have these sort of different sections. And as I scroll my mouse over it, we see each separate section within the portal itself. And if I click on a section, that allows me to then edit the section over on the right-hand side. So here's a spot for a logo or an image. I don't have a whole lot to choose from, but I'll go ahead and choose an image. Upload. So I'll use my campus image because I don't really have a whole lot of options, but sure. We'll use this image. Okay, boom, it puts the image up on the top. Now this is just a text box. So the element is a text element. Complete the registration to onboard Wi-Fi. And so I can change that message here. I can alter things like the background. I can put a background color to it there. Or I can just go back to all white there. We can set opacity. So we can really tweak this up. How deep they want you to go with this, I don't know. But play around with it just so you know that what you can do. Okay, so here's one of the parts where we're actually going to start asking them for information. So this is called a registration form item right here. And so we see the input field. So I'm asking for a name and an email right now. And I can change that over here. I can add new stuff. You know what? Also ask them for their phone number. And we can say that this is mandatory or that these are optional. So you know what? You have to enter your name and email, but your phone number, that one's optional. Error messages, these would be the error messages, I think, if you didn't type in your name or you didn't type in your email or the phone number or something like that. But again, if we keep scrolling down, some background, borders, padding between the sections here. And then we have down here your acceptable use, the terms and conditions, where they would have to accept that. And if we're going to do this, I think we actually have to type in the terms and conditions. So this is the terms and conditions right here. Agree to this will be our terms and conditions. And then we have the submit button. There's a few things that are required on these, submit button being one of them. Submit now. How about that? We can change the button. So lots of different things that we can tweak, and sort of make it our own. Overall, we have this background for the overall theme, I believe. We can set a sort of a color scheme for the overall portal, and so it's going to start changing it across all of the different things. I'll go back to default here. So just play around with it a little bit and just try to get comfortable with what's under the different tabs. We can add and remove elements of our own inside of here, and so these are all the elements that we can go ahead, click it, and drag it over, sort of a deal. But we'll just we'll stick with what we have now. This is good enough to me. And so let's go ahead and save and assign. All right, now if I head back to Connect Experiences, I have the CCIE portal, and since it was the default, it's applied it everywhere. And so now, regardless of where I go, that's the portal I'm going to get sent to on the MSE. But then we can create additional portals and say, you know what, I'll go ahead and head over to my library. I'll create a new portal. And this one I'll do a custom one. So I'll click on custom. I'll call it custom. And now I'm going to have to build it from scratch, however it is that I want. So I'm going to have to go over to the content, and I'm going to have to add in this stuff. And like I said, I think at a minimum we kind of need a submit button for sure. And if you ever try to save it and you're missing something important, it'll tell you. So the submit button, I think, is the one truly required thing. But I want more than that. So probably need a registration form. That would kind of make a little bit of a sense. And let's get this down here so you can drag it around. All that you need. Play around. We can create our own new inputs inside here. So I'm going to create another one, and it will be a drop-down list. And we'll say, what should we say? Favorite color. And then we can add in our, what do we do? There we go. Hit the edit button, and we'll say red, blue, black. Sure. So we'll give them 3 options, and we'll tell them to choose one. Choose favorite color. How about that? Then they know what it is that they're actually choosing. So choose favorite color, they'll click it, they'll get the options for their favorite color, name and email address. All right, awesome. And again, whatever it is that they ask you to actually do, you can feel free to do that. This opt-in, we didn't see this on another one, or opt-out, I should say. So we can give them the option to not track my location if you want to do that. Otherwise, by default, we're going to track all the locations, but here we're giving the option of not tracking location. So that's kind of a special one in terms of the content there that you might want to be aware of. We saw a lot of these other ones, though, the terms and conditions, we saw that. We saw, images, contact us if we want to, give them information about us, links for their phone, our phone, email, website, which you would then have to populate inside here, but I don't feel like populating that, so I'll get rid of it. And we'll call that good enough. So this will be my custom one. Nothing special at all, but that's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and save it. Then I'll go back to Connect Experiences, and now this becomes available to call out in here. So I'll say, if you're in the West, you'll take the default, but if you're in the East, I will go ahead and send you to the custom. So now you start seeing how we can have different portals per location. Once we get the portals, we're going to call them out on a per zone basis at the most granular level here. What about a post auth URL? Let's go ahead and send them to our PI server. Do you have it? Evidently it wants a DNS name probably. Well, that's fine. pi.dojo.local. Fine. Okay, and then it pops it down, but we can, on a per zone basis, change this to other things as well. So, but I'll just leave it at the default because it's not like I have a whole lot of places I want to send people here. And then we'll look at the policy. I guess we'll create a policy. We'll create a new policy plan. And all this is again, it's rate limiting. So I'll call this one high, and we'll say that, you know what, you get 5 meg of bandwidth. Okay, so we have this plan called high. Down to here, select it. Whoops, there we go. And again, this is configurable on a per site basis. So I can change it at the site level, but I can't change it below. So once we're in a site, within that entire site, they get the same policy plan. If I had multiple sites, then as they move between sites, we could assign them different policy plans. Now, a word about that. If they wanted to theoretically support moving between sites that have different policy plans on it, and they have different rate limits, maybe there was another one, and that one was low, and you only get 1 meg here. So let's say that person starts in a site that has the high one, and so they got 5 meg of bandwidth assigned to their site. And then if they move to another site that has low, are they going to get flipped down to the low? And that's dependent on this keep highest bandwidth option here. So with this turned off, as they move between different sites, they're going to have their rate limiting overwritten based off of whatever the policy is in the site that they're at. But if we have this checked, which it was checked by default, if I started off with the high, and then I roamed over to a place that was low, I would continue to enjoy the high bandwidth setting as long as this keep highest bandwidth checkbox was checked within here. So those are really all the sort of the pieces of the puzzle in terms of the configuration on the CMX side of things. We have the portal, we have the policy, which is rate limiting, and then we have the post-auth URL. Some of these can be done on a per zone basis, but the policy is at the site level basis. And we should not need to worry about Facebook Wi-Fi. Okay, let's take a look at the settings here, and then we'll show you the configurations and actually making this all work on the controller. So if we go to the general settings, we have these a few different settings here with some thresholds. So let's talk about these. So the user retention period. Whenever a guest first connects up, we're going to be keeping tabs on them because again, a lot of the whole point of this is for marketing, statistics gathering, things like that. So when we've seen a user and they supply their information, we're going to keep their information for, in this case, 180 days, at which point we'll purge them. And I think, I'd have to double check this, but I think this might be, as long as I keep seeing them within 180 days, we keep them up. So it's not like from the first time I see them, if they're here every day, I'm not going to purge them after 180 days from the time I first seen them. I think it's 180 days since I've last seen them that we would then purge them out. Statistics retention period. So how long are we keeping statistics for all the different users for? So here we'll give ourselves a year of statistics. We don't deal with SMS notifications of anything, so these are pretty irrelevant to us. But the visitor portal frequency. How often do we want them to re-enter their information? So right now, we actually have it set to 180 days. So what does this mean? Okay, so the first time a guest connects up, they're always sent to the portal. They have to supply their information. They hit submit. Okay, now they've sort of registered themselves. And they don't have to re-register and re-enter that information for now up to 180 days. So they only have to complete the portal once every 180 days, unless we start dropping this down. We can get all the way down to, every single day you have to complete the portal process, or every time you have to do the portal. So I'll set this to 0 because it makes testing a lot easier as I continually reconnect. Otherwise, we have to delete our user out to make it forget about it and then reconnect on it. So 0 should mean every single time you connect, you have to go through the portal. So we'll go ahead and we'll start off with that. So there is no save. We just need to click away. All right, so those are the settings within there. We'll look at debugging tools, but debugging tools basically just allows you to delete a user from the database, which again can be helpful as we do different types of testing to get sort of a fresh, brand new guest connecting up sort of scenario. PMS account is not something that's really stuff that we need to care about. It only works like 1 week out of the month anyways. Sorry, bad joke. This is property management system is what this one stands for. It's requires a whole separate server for like hotel management type stuff. Completely out of scope for us. So we don't have to worry about this one. Okay. So let's, now that we have these things set up, let's take a look at what do we need on the controller side to make this work, and then we'll actually start going through these portals and sort of see the fruits of our labor here.